One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. I'm happy to have David Teel of the Daily Press back on One Question. David, you may be leading the pack. I don't know if this is your fourth or fifth time on, but that is a noteworthy accomplishment to add to your illustrious career. So congratulations. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me, man.
I do want to have a conversation about the piece you published yesterday. A ton went on around college athletics. In my opinion, a ton went on. Even though we're in the middle of the summer, every day, there is no downtime in this industry, and above and beyond folks talking about realignment and expansion and media deals, you released what I think was a very interesting piece on a conversation with Brian Kersey, who's the ACC men's basketball coordinator of officials, as well as Mike Eads, Tim Nestor, and Bill Covington, about how the ACC is trying to get better at men's basketball officiating. They're already converting at a really good rate of 93%. Which I don't think anybody could argue would be a rate that's below, indexing below where we'd like to see it for the game. And we know officiating is hard. We know that technology, as one of the guys said, technology fixes everything. Or Kersey said it's easy to referee when you're slowing everything down. We get it. But I'm specifically curious about the last 4 minutes of games now. What the ACC is going to do differently to judge their officials, and maybe more importantly, how they are going to communicate what they find in the last 4 minutes to fans at large who watch ACC basketball.
Well, Matt, this was part of a National Sports Media Association seminar down in North Carolina that Brian and his three officials were gracious enough to attend, and stood up on a stage with, I don't know, 30 or 40 media members peppering them with questions. And I was struck by the 4-minute evaluation too, and it goes back. Brian Kersey, as many people know, his dad was Jess Kersey, who recently passed away, but was a renowned NBA official. So even though Brian's career was strictly in the college ranks, he always has kept an eye on the NBA and how it handles officiating and such. And the NBA has started to evaluate how officials perform on the floor in the last few minutes of games. And Kersey thought it would be a good idea to take that into the ACC. And the 4-minute mark was a logical point, simply because that's where the final TV timeout comes. So starting this past season is when the ACC started to have a separate grade for its officials for the final 4 minutes, because as Kersey noted, that's all the coaches ever talk about. When they call him or Paul Brazo, his boss, to voice displeasure, 90% of the time it's not about a call in the first 36 minutes. It's about a late whistle. But for fans who might be expecting some kind of public release of these late game grades, they're going to be disappointed. This won't be like the NBA, where after each game that late game grade is available.
And I think that's one of the interesting things and positively publicly facing developments that the NBA has done. And I believe they do. Do they do last 4 or do they do last 2 of only single digit games?
I believe it's last 2, but I don't follow the NBA that closely, so I may be incorrect there.
I think it is the last 2, and then they publish call for call. If the game is within 9 points or less, they publish the review of those calls, which I think is I find that to be highly fan-centric and transparent. And let's be honest, we know these guys and gals for 5-6 months, half a year. They do multiple games per week. as some of the guys noted in your piece from the conversation on stage, the travel maybe is a little overblown compared to some of the officiating alliances that are out there these days, as well as just the ability to travel easily with modern day airfare and that sort of thing. However, we can't skip over this fact that they are making well in excess, some of them, and most of them definitely in excess of six figures, which for the median viewing public seems like a really big number, right, to officiate basketball games. So do you have any sense of if we may ever see this public-facing review of the last 2 minutes that fans would probably love to dissect?
I think we're a ways away from that. When after the seminar was over, I got Brian aside and asked that very question. I mean, he couldn't have said no fast enough. So I think right now it's a non-starter. But you know how these things evolve, Matt. Let's say another conference picked up this notion of evaluating officials in the last few minutes of games and went the NBA route and released it publicly. What would that prompt other leagues to do? I mean, there's nothing like peer pressure, right?
Yeah, that's right. How do you level that, though? We have a professional league, clearly that's a behemoth globally, second only here in the U.S. in terms of revenues. I'm saying this off the top of my head, so I'm not. Don't quote me, but obviously a massive professional corporation in the NBA that is a different set of standards, of course, than how we view the NCAA. But we also know what the narrative is around revenues in college athletics, specifically the two revenue sports, men's basketball being one of them. How, as a journalist in this space, do you fairly level why they shouldn't do that as a forward-thinking approach to communication with fans?
Hey, the more information, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I think it would be great, but I also understand how they're looking at it. These aren't full-time employees. These are independent contractors, and yes, while they are evaluating them more and more as technology evolves, they prefer at this point to keep that in-house. If somebody said, to me, do you want your annual performance evaluation being released to the public? I don't know.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.